Hello and welcome to another Q&A with the Mayor. I'm Matt Sommer and I'm joined today with Patty Mandera
Hello.
and Mayor Don Triplett.
Hello.
Over the past few months, we've received some concerns from our citizens about the streets and their current state and what we're going to do about them. And so I'd like to take some time, if you wouldn't mind, giving up a little bit of your afternoon.
Sure.
And we can talk about what you'd like to do as we go forward in this new year and maybe in the next few years over what we can do with the streets.
Okay.
About a week ago, we posted out on Facebook to get some information about this podcast out to the public so that they know what we're talking about. And we're going to go over those topics today, which are going to be the current state of the streets, the street priorities, curbing and sidewalks, and the short-term and long-term plans.
Sure.
I know we've received one question, so we'll have that answered or asked a little bit later so you can have a time to answer it.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind starting us off with some background info about like the current state of the streets and just get us introduced to it.
Sure. The city of Sarcoxie has a little bit over 15 miles of streets that are either asphalted, chip and sealed, or in any other way covered. Little engineering study we had last year in 2019 was that the value of those streets is a bit over $6.5 million worth. So I didn't even appreciate how many miles of street we had, but yeah, 15 miles. Our priorities have been, for the last 12 years or so, has been to try to focus on protecting and preserving what we currently have. It is very expensive to do asphalt projects, to the point of almost being unaffordable. So we've had to be very careful about all that. As far as streets today, we've put a priority over the last few years to try to protect and preserve existing streets. Crack sealing, we've done a complete resurfacing of the square, for example. What we're trying to do is try to affect the deterioration curve to where streets in their current state will last longer, which will give us time to build up resources to either resurface them or to fix them properly. So we have some streets that they're not the best streets at all, but they're at least protected and preserved. They're not broke up too badly, which buys us time to build up our money to come back around and be able to permanently fix those streets.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Patty to ask the first question.
Mr. Salyer wants to know, the primary question would be options other than asphalt, like concrete and potholes, chip and seal, or anything else to possibly remedy the situation.
Sure. When it comes to just repairing a street like a pothole, you've got a couple of things you can do, and one is what they call a cold fill, which is a patch over an existing pothole. It's designed to not maybe be as permanent. It's certainly not as good as a hot fill asphalt like what most streets are made out of. Concrete is another good option. One thing that really hurt us was when the local concrete plant closed down, because prior to its closing, we had access to a concrete truck that could just come right here, didn't have to buy a full load. It was very economical for us to dig out potholes and fill them right up with concrete. Now then, we have to get concrete from a little bit further away, Carthage, Mount Vernon, wherever, and that kind of inhibits us a little bit on that. I will tell you too, over the short haul, excuse me, we had, there was actually a shortage locally of cold fill. We just couldn't get it. We couldn't get the patch stuff. And as of a few weeks ago, it still wasn't really available at our vendors that we normally go to. So that's been a little bit of a problem for us also in the short term. As far as what he's saying there, he's spot on that, really those are the two main ways that we can fix potholes that we're aware of.
Okay.
So. All right. Transitioning back into the topics, could you go over what our priority streets are?
Sure. Like I said before, one of our big focuses is to try to protect and preserve existing streets to save money for major improvements or major repairs. with no disrespect to our forefathers and our predecessors, looking back now, the previous solution for asphalt has been just to put more inches of asphalt over existing roads. And I think that's pretty well how it's been done for the last few decades. And we've ended up with problems where the street is actually taller in a lot of places than the curbing. The crown of the street, the middle of the road, oftentimes is higher than the curb or the surrounding land or properties. And that's a real problem. You can't just keep doing that, especially if you've got a weak understructure underneath all of it. If you have a weak street, you pour more asphalt over it, you're just going to still have that weak street. It'll work great for a little while, but it's still going to deteriorate at a faster rate than if you have a solid base underneath it. So you'll see that, for example, on Center Street, where that's had some of the most recent asphalt replacement. The road is just worn out. It doesn't have a very good base underneath it. So, as a matter of policy, our priority is to try to take care of what we call collector streets. For us, we've identified over 10 years ago that the collector streets are Center, Joplin, 5th, 11th, and 17th. What those are streets that go through our city that most people have very quick access to. Within a block or two, they can usually get to one of those two streets, or one of those streets. Those streets, ideally, we want to be the best streets in our city. Good two-way traffic, sidewalks and curbing, preferential treatment during bad weather, like with ice and snow. That's our real priority. We also have an emphasis on sidewalks and curbing. Good streets is important, kind of under the belief that you can really impact and improve the condition of a neighborhood if you have good curbing and sidewalks right there. That they go a long way in helping make everything look a little bit better. So, and of course, everything we try to do, we try to keep an eye towards long-term sustainability. We don't have the money to waste on a bad asphalt project. We want to do it and fix it and for it to be there for a long time, and then to try to maintain that from there on.
Okay. Going back to your collector streets, is there a reason for them being like asphalt versus the chip and seal, or certain materials on certain roads?
A lot of people would be hard pressed to tell the difference between asphalt and chip and seal. A number of our projects in the city have been chip and sealed, and just how you finish them when it's said and done, you really can't tell the difference. You really can't, or I can't. Chip and seal is generally a lot cheaper than a full-blown asphalt job. Now, some of the major repairs we're talking about would have to be the full-blown asphalt. Usually chip and seal is a little bit thinner. For some of the major streets we're talking about trying to fix, you're talking about digging it up, fixing the base, and adding several inches of asphalt back over it and tying it all in together. So for us, long term, I believe chip and seal is very viable, as long as we're not just adding more inches to everything and just continuing to raise the road bed. That's had an adverse impact on us. Stormwater is an issue. Streets, especially with curbs and gutters, are designed to help move stormwater. And if you compromise that curb and guttering system, you're compromising your ability to move stormwater out of Sarcoxie, which we know is a problem here. So.
Okay. And what are the resources that we can really pull from to get that fixed, or at least on our plans?
Well, some of the resources that we have are, we have a street sales tax that the voters have approved, and it was reapproved several years ago. And we have a motor fuel tax, which is collected by the state, and it's kind of based on the sale of fuel in the city, and it's prorated out, it's rationed out to the state, the county, and of course the city based on populations. So that's pretty important. We've also looked at grants. We're trying, grants are hard to get with the streets. Most of those are state level grants that are administered, it's federal dollars administered through the state and come down to us. We've not been very successful with those, but we continue to try. So,
Okay. Do you have an average amount of how much it would cost to repair a certain amount of street, or?
we don't have a recent quote. One quote that we did get a few years ago to fix a street right, that involved digging it up, making repairs to the bed underneath it, and then repouring, I believe it was 6 inches of asphalt. It was $80,000 for just about a 3-block area. It just wouldn't go that far for us.
Yeah.
So, and it's just gotten more expensive since then.
All right. So when we transition to our last piece of it, is what are our plans for fixing it? What are our short-term, our long-term?
Okay. Well, short term, the council, as part of their budget review this year, they've approved the plan to chip and seal 7th Street from Franklin to Joplin. That was a project. We went from Center Street to Franklin and ran out of money a few years ago, so we stopped there. The plan is to go ahead this year and finish that, take it on out to Joplin Street. We're also looking at possibly chip and sealing 12th Street from Center to Clarence Street. We're hoping to get that done. It's a short little run, and it's in terrible, terrible shape. The next big fix that we're hoping to do is focus on Center Street from 11th to 14th. So basically 11th Street to 37 Highway. That's one I'm hoping that we do it well, that we dig it up, fix the curb through there. That's a main bus route, so it needs to be a good solid street. So past that, we're going to continue, like this year, we're putting $20,000 into our savings account, our asphalt fund. At the beginning of the year, there was already $61,000 in it. So we're going to put more money into that and just try to keep building that up so we can do these big projects like this. Past that, we're going to continue to try to protect and preserve existing streets. So,
okay. All right. I think that question that we received had 2 parts to it. I think it'd be a good time to bring up the second point. Patty,
yes, the second part of his question is, have you by chance reached out to other smaller towns and cities such as Monette to get an idea of their processes and procedures on their streets?
We have, yes and no. A lot of the smaller cities, like Monette and them, are in a totally different league than what us, just by sheer population and size. I'm pretty sure they have their own actual street department that have a lot of these resources to do. We've talked with fellow cities. A lot of the cities that are our size and our revenue base are in the same boat that we're in. Streets are kind of deteriorating. Money's a problem. They can't just come back in and just re-asphalt all of their streets. I know at the state level, it's one of the biggest issues that the governor's working on right now. The governor and all of the elected officials is finding ways to get more money to fix streets. Some of the motor fuel tax increases that they're proposing would have a benefit on smaller cities like us too. We would still get a small cut of that. So more money means more of this. We've looked at concrete, but concrete on a per foot basis is quite a bit more expensive even than asphalt on the install. But it's good for spot repairs and everything else, but just not a good thing to do miles of concrete. It's not feasible.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question. Is there certain areas in our city that the city cannot touch that's MoDOT property?
Yes. One of the biggest complaints we get are potholes next to the highway. Take, for example, Center Street, Center and 37 Highway. There's a transition, there's a right-of-way from that highway that is still under the control of MoDOT. We're not allowed to mess with those. If you drive down 37 and you look at like Center Street, Joplin Street, and some of the streets in between, you'll actually see almost a transition line just off from the highway. And that's pretty close to where MoDOT's jurisdiction ends and the city starts. So every year we get complaints and we direct those to MoDOT and they come in and try to fix them. I know in 2019 they made some more substantial repairs on some of those streets to try to keep the potholes from cropping back up. I know we've just recently put in inquiries with MoDOT about some of those potholes like at 17th and High. So hopefully we'll have some luck with MoDOT on getting those fixed.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Dawn, for helping with that. And thank you for those who submitted the questions or concerns. And hopefully this is a lot of feedback that we're able to give back to the people.
Sure. And you know, I would ask people to please send comments in, questions and stuff, because we're better if everybody knows what's going on. And if you have a question, let us know so we can try to address it. We don't have to do it through a podcast, but we're always willing to answer questions and take new ideas and hear things that maybe we're not aware of or we're not aware of are as big a problem as what maybe people think they are. So we need the inputs.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll continue these podcasts hopefully on a regular basis. I know our next one is going to be an AMA that Ask Me Anything, and it's going to be called The Hot Seat. I'll put Dawn on the hot seat and ask them about anything that you guys have a concern about. So if you have any questions, our date to file those questions with the getonboard@sarcoxiemo.com email is the 28th of this month. So if you have anything that you'd like addressed in the next podcast, please reach out and we'll try to put Dawn on the spot.
It's called The Hot Seat, huh?
It's called The Hot Seat.
Fun.
Yes.
Fun. Okay.
We'll see you there.
Thanks.